Good evening. Welcome to Reflections on East Granby. Today's date is February 6, 2010. My name is Mike Malloy, and I'll be your host this evening. With us tonight from East Granby, a resident of 7 Copper Hill Terrace, is Harold Clark Holly. Most people know him by Ted, and we'll be referring to him as Ted tonight. He's a 54-year resident of East Granby. What?
Since 1957. What does that come out to be?
53-year resident.
40.
53-year resident of East Granby. And let's get started. Good evening, Ted. How you doing? Okay, so why don't we start with, you were born in 1924 in Shanghai.
Shanghai, China.
China.
That was an interesting series of events, because in 1923, in September, was the worst earthquake ever in Japan.
Yeah.
And we were living in Japan at the time, in Tokyo.
Right.
My father worked for General Electric in Tokyo at the time. He had a 4-year stint over there. So this was 23, my mother's pregnant with me, and they managed to get out alive, including my little sister, who was 5 or something. And but the city was gone, so everything goes by boats. There was no other way to get anywhere, and they took a boat to Shanghai, because that's where the office moved to. GE moved the whole operation to Shanghai, because there's nothing going on in Tokyo anymore. My mother...
So do you have memories of Shanghai?
I do not. I don't remember anything.
That's pretty young.
I've seen some pictures of me on the boat coming back from, in 1926, when I was 2 years old, and being pushed around the boat deck on a stroller.
Right.
And I was told, this is nothing as firsthand, I don't remember anything, that the doctor told my mother I had chicken pox.
Really?
The doctor said, keep him out of sight, somebody will throw him overboard, thinking it's smallpox.
Wow.
So that's really all through that.
Different times, huh?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Now, what did your dad do actually for GE?
He was International General Electric, which is foreign sales. Which was, in those days, was turbine generator units, systems for coal-fired power plants all over the
So they did that even that far back, huh? I didn't realize that.
All steam-powered turbine generator systems.
So they were electrifying the Far East.
And that's, GE was big in that. They're not as big anymore at all, because a lot of it is combustion engineering and other companies, foreign companies doing.
Right. And what were your mom and dad's names?
My father's was Harold, same as mine. And my mother was Clara Sonnekalb.
Sonnekalb.
Sonnekalb. A real German.
That's quite a name.
But she was born here. Her parents came over from Germany before. Okay,
so you're coming home as a 2-year-old. Where do you take up residence?
Schenectady, New York.
New York. Okay.
Yeah.
Now that's a big headquarters for GE, correct?
The main event for GE in those days.
Right.
That's right.
And how long were you there, and where'd you go from there?
I stayed there all the way through high school until I went to college. So I was there until 1941.
What are your memories of Schenectady as a youngster growing up there? What stands out?
Well, without being racist or bad about it, the American Locomotive Company was also there along with GE. They were the big employers. And there were many foreigners, mostly Italian and Polish, in the area where I lived.
Right.
And they worked mostly at American Locomotive Company at the time.
So it was a large ethnic population?
Very ethnic population, all in that one area of town, as far as I know.
Wow. So you grew up in a little...
So I grew up with all these people.
A little microcosm of like New York, almost, like the city itself.
Yeah.
So your memory, but as a as a young guy growing up, was it a fun place to grow up? Was it?
Well, I lived on the corner across the street from Union College. Union College is it probably was a boys' college at then. I think it's not.
It's a pretty popular school. I know
but it's a very good school.
Yeah.
And we used to sneak into all the football games whenever we could.
Right.
Because we lived right there, right across the street, and we walked through the college every day to get to high school, which was I don't know, 3/4 of a mile away or something like that.
Okay.
So you walk cross country through the campus.
Right.
And to high school every day, forever, seemed like.
So that must have been a problem, basically a fairly urban area. I mean, it wasn't a small town.
No, not a small town. No. I could walk to my elementary school and to high school, 2 different schools, but they were easily walkable.
Right, and you're fairly substantial schools, pretty big schools?
Well, yes, I would say they were big schools. I think our graduating class was 400 or something like that. Maybe that's not big anymore, but and it was 2 buildings.
Big for East Granby.
2 stories in one building, and either 3 or 4 stories in the other building, connected by a bridge or up at the 2nd level or 3rd level.
Did you have? What year did you graduate high school?
That's another funny one. January 1942. January.
Okay.
Because in those days, for whatever reason, there were 2 classes every year.
Right.
One started in September and one started in January.
So they staggered it.
Staggered.
That's strange.
And whether that was because of birthdays and they wanted to get more people in before their age washed them out of this year, they could get them into the next year. They could start January if they couldn't start September, that kind of thing. But so that was a September, and I couldn't.
I guess that would shrink the classes down a little bit, wouldn't it?
Yes.
You staggered them like that.
Yeah, but I
it's
think
kind of like having a split shift.
So maybe we had 800 if you wanted to call it for the year, but only 400 for my half.
Yeah, so there was a lot of bodies in that school.
It was a big school, a lot of people.
So you graduated high school in 1942, right at the peak of World War II. What was that?
That's right. Because
we were on 2 fronts.
December 41 was, and so only a few.
A few weeks.
Yeah, but I graduated only a few weeks after that, and
Pearl Harbor.
And I couldn't go to college. Of course, the colleges don't start odd shifts like that. They start in September or October. So I had to wait till then. I took a couple of graduate, what do you call them, postgraduate courses, typing and drafting and whatever. I can't remember.
Just to fill in the 6 months?
Yeah, till you fill up for the spring semester, make it worthwhile.
Yeah. What did you think you were going to do? Or what did?
I think I was a copycat or something. My father convinced me mechanical engineering or engineering. I had already agreed on engineering. Thinking of electrical, and when I talked to GE, they said you ought to take mechanical because your employer will fit you in where they want you, and mechanical is a better all around.
There are more positions to utilize that
I think
degree.
That was the
I bet you it might be different today. I bet you electrical's probably.
Yeah, I would think, and not the kind of electrical that we had then, which was steam turbines and
right. No. A little more
and generators. Now it's a lot of it is electronic,
slightly lower voltage.
Yeah,
very sensitive stuff.
Less dangerous, maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, so you graduate high school right after Pearl Harbor. You take some courses to kind of fill in your curriculum and
spring
keep
semester.
busy.
Yeah.
And where do you go from there?
Well, I went to college in the fall of '42.
Yeah.
Which was I guess September, October. To Penn State.
Uncle Sam
Penn State? But of course, it was the cheapest place to go.
Right.
It was the out of state. I was at the time out of state. Tuition was $75 a semester. I mean, and Yale was $400. So I got accepted at Yale and Worcester Polytechnic or whatever that is out there now. And
Yale was $400.
Yeah, way out of my father's. So
you had pretty good grades.
I had good grades. Yeah, I could go. I even applied for West Point and won the whatever you call it, the exam, competitive exam given by the local senator in New York or Schenectady. But even though I got accepted from that sense, I couldn't get in because I didn't weigh enough and I was too little.
Really? You filled out a little.
Yeah, well,
you probably qualify now.
I'm up to 125 now, and I don't know.
Really? Yeah. Okay. So you they didn't want you getting blown off West Point. It's a pretty rough area up there.
Well,
pretty windy. So you have anyway. So you're moving on through. And at what point did you get a letter from the government?
Oh well, there were a bunch of us in school. This was Penn State, who, like myself, had rather than get drafted, which could come anytime, I guess. We had no knowledge when.
Right.
We'd already had to fill out the forms and stuff. We wanted Air Force. There was no Air Force, but Army Air Corps was there. So.
Did you think it was more exciting, or was it more along the lines of what you wanted to do as a career?
Well, I think flying is a lot more exciting or interesting, if that's right, than being a foot soldier
I would agree.
In the trenches. That's probably a terrible attitude, but that's what
it's the truth, right?
Anyway, and we got called up in May of the following May. It would be 43. Yeah, May of 43.
Yeah.
And that's right, May of 43. And a lot of us stayed together for a long time thereafter until they went to active duty and I went to being an instructor.
Right.
But that was the...
Okay, so you went from there and you became an instructor, a flying instructor. Where did you go there?
Well, all the flight training I had was in Florida and Georgia. Last airplane at the top of the line at that time was an AT-6, which is now the primary trainer or something in the Air Force. AT-6, a single engine, Pratt-powered, two-place fore and aft, with folding gear and a real nice. Oh, I loved that airplane.
It was a good flying plane?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And they sent me after I graduated in Moultrie, Georgia, was where we graduated and Spence Field, an airport or an air base there. And they sent me to Randolph Field, Texas, because that's where the instructor school was.
Okay.
So I stayed there a month or whatever, or 6 weeks or something for instructor school. And what else? And that was where I got to fly P-40s the first time. For whatever reason.
Mustang?
No, P-40 is the old Flying Tiger airplane from the hump over in India, or flying over the Burma Road.
Those are the bigger ones?
It's a single engine. No,
really?
These were a combat airplane. These were the protector.
Oh, they protected the cargo that was coming through the back route.
This was the Army and the Air Force fighter plane in the first part of the war, up until the P-47 and the P-51 showed up much later in the war.
So you were training guys that were going to go off and fly those in combat, basically?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So we get a chance to fly them ourselves a little bit to see, the landing gears, the skinny landing gear, and the nose of the airplanes is 6 miles out there.
Yeah, right. So you must have been pretty savvy at it if they had to show another guy.
Good enough anyway.
Yeah, good enough. Yeah. That's interesting. So what year? How long were you in the Army Air Corps, which doesn't exist anymore?
No, I don't know when it ceased to exist, but it was after I got out. I graduated in 44H. 44H, that was September of 44, I guess.
Okay.
And then it was middle of 1945, or late 45, when the war ended.
Right.
And by that time, they had already kicked us out of flight training. They didn't need any more pilots. They had recognized now that Germany was gone.
The backlog of pilots.
So they put us in fighter planes, which was the P-47, ready to go overseas. And then the war ended, and so even though we were in gunnery school ready to go.
So they took the trainers
Well, they gave us an option. You want to sign up for six years, or do you want to get out now? now, meaning tomorrow, kind of thing, you know.
Right.
So I opted to go back to school and get out then rather than.
It must have been pretty exciting times for a young guy.
Oh yes, flying those airplanes. The P-47 was a.
Quite a little rocket.
And all balance controls, feather light to, you know, compared with the AT-6, which is an old nut and bolts thing.
It looks like going from a tractor to a sports car. Huh?
Yeah.
I can imagine. So you come back to the States, you come back to, you get released
I came back to
Connecticut, or did you go to?
Oh, I went straight to, back to Schenectady, I guess, for a few days, but then straight down to Penn State to start my second year.
Okay, so you went back to college.
I missed 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
What did you? So you picked up where you left off, basically.
Yes, picked up where I left off.
And you got you did how many years? 4 years? 2 years?
4 years. At Penn State, yes.
So you got your degree in
mechanical engineering. I got a later degree from RPI here in Hartford 10 years later or something like that, but that was a master's degree in the same subject.
So you graduate from Penn State, and where do you go?
I tried out, auditioned, I guess, is that the right word? At Pratt & Whitney and Hamilton Standard and somewhere in West Virginia and at least 4 places. Oh, and in Beacon, New York, Texaco or someone.
You went in and worked there, or you just went in and interviewed?
Just for interviews.
Okay.
This was while we were still in school. Before we graduated, we went. He had interviews lined up because the employers were all coming to school to interview, and they would say, "Yeah, we'd like to have you come and."
Yeah, right.
So I was we had a flying club, so I was able to fly to various places to get interviewed.
Yeah. So you fly in for your interview.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Hollywood star or something. Just jet in.
Some interesting times getting in. I had to land in a farmer's field at a dirt strip. It was It was on the map because the wind was against me going to Delaware and I can't remember where I was going to, and I had to stop there and spend the night with some people and get out the next morning and go to Delaware. And then when I went to Beacon, New York to Texaco another time, the weather was bad. I couldn't leave, and I had to get back to school. I was missing. But the weather finally got up enough at 11 o'clock or something in the morning, so I got back and I got as far as partway across Pennsylvania, and the ceiling was down to so I followed a river south and came out in the sunshine. And so
nice. They didn't have the sort of technology in the planes they have today. It was fly by sight.
There was nothing in my airplane.
Oh, really? Okay, so you were just like pedaling a bicycle up there. All right, so you landed safely then. Who'd you end up signing up with after all those interviews?
Hamilton Standard.
Okay, and did you spend the majority of your career there?
Yeah, I stayed there the whole time.
Okay, so you signed up with Hamilton, you come to Connecticut, and where do you
Well, you end up in East Hartford because that's where Pratt & Whitney and Hamilton Standard both were.
Okay.
Up until 51 or something like that when Hamilton moved out to Bradley Field.
I didn't realize that, yeah.
They moved out to Bradley Airport, and that's when I moved to Windsor to be closer to work.
Right.
And then I moved to East Granby a number of years later to be in an easier to handle house than the one that I was in.
You were in a farmhouse up by behind
old
Walgreens?
summer place up behind Walgreens, which is an old, gorgeous stone fireplace. What do you call it? A shingled structure, 1 floor.
Is it still there?
And when I sold it to American Sumatra because they wanted to build, I think, houses on that whole upper level behind Walgreen.
Okay.
Up there, because that was 26 acres that I had, and there was a whole lot more going north, all the way up to School Street.
Okay.
You can walk all the way to School Street from where I was through the woods now.
It's still undeveloped.
That's still undeveloped.
Yeah, it's the biggest undeveloped parcel I think in East Granby
and so nothing has happened there. But and I don't know what they did with it, whether they have sold it out piecemeal. Anyway, the house, there was also a tenant house on it, that went with the apple storage cellar, and it was all from, I don't know what era.
Yeah. An old farmstead of some sort.
Yeah, but anyway, the Windsor, I guess, they burned it down.
Okay.
It was so vandalized that they couldn't, there was no reason to keep it.
It gets dangerous after a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so at what point did you, so this is in 50s, correct?
This was in the 50s.
Okay.
57 when I was married, and I moved into the house late that same year, 57.
Okay, so you spend the first couple years or time in that house, and then you moved to East Granby in 57?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so you moved to East Granby in 57.
57, so I was in that house from 52 or 51, so 5 or 6 years.
Okay, so when you got married, your wife said, "I'm not living there."
Well, I had already, we'd already made that decision.
Yeah, okay, all right, I get it. Okay, so you moved to East Granby. Where'd you move in East Granby?
Cricket Lane. Cricket Lane, and
yep.
you know where that is.
Yeah,
It's down
sure,
near
off
you.
of Spoonville.
Yeah.
So you moved in there, and you started a family, correct?
Yes.
You have 2 children?
I think when we, 2 children, yes, and they were born in 68 or 65 and 68, I guess.
Okay. Now let me ask you a question. You're a young guy. You're a relatively young guy at that point, and you're working at Hamilton. What were the projects that they had you working on in that era?
Okay. Well, I started out as a service representative for a while, which was traveling all the time. I didn't think too much of that, and
right.
So I switched to. I was a project engineer on pneumatic starters.
Right.
Now, nobody knows what a pneumatic starter is, but if you've got a gas turbine engine, all the military ones are pneumatic because they don't weigh anything compared with a heavy electric motor kind of starter.
Yeah, I guess they would.
And so of course you have to have an air compressor source to do that, but all the military bases have that.
Really?
So we had pneumatic starters all over the place on B-52s and similar airplanes. And then I went into environmental controls, which is heat exchangers and, again, turbine machinery, which is air cycle refrigeration, which nobody knows anything about because it's always Freon or vapor cycle refrigeration, but it was actually air cycle in those days.
So they didn't have an actual gas other than normal air in it?
Yeah.
What did they? How did that work?
Because they're gas turbine engines have to provide very high pressure air to the compressor, or the compressor provides the high compressor air to the burner, to the combustion chamber, and you can bleed tiny amounts of that high pressure air into a small turbine machine, and you cool it first because it's hot. Run it through heat exchangers, have the ram air cooling, and then then you expand it from this high pressure back down to sea level pressure, and it comes out very cold.
So you allow it to
very
expand.
Cold.
Interesting.
Yep. Okay. Very cold, and so that cold air is. They use that in all the airliners and everything, except the latest Boeing one. They all have that kind of systems in them.
So it's designed to cool the other components.
And the cold air comes in and cools the cockpit.
Oh, they actually use it as a refrigerant.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah, cools the whole air of everything.
Interesting.
Cools everything.
So you were in. So what else did you do at Hamilton? Did you?
Well, beyond that, I was in proposal work towards the end, and I was writing proposals for this kind of equipment for the stealth bomber was the last one that I was on. That's the B-2 bomber. Yeah.
Before anybody knew what it was.
Yes. So this funny looking thing that flies.
Giving quotes for the plane with no name, right?
Yeah.
Now you that starts. Hamilton's primary business was environmental controls, huh?
That was a big part. There's another big part is fuel controls.
Okay.
Because the turbine engines have full authority fuel controls that control the whole everything. It's a lot just different than the piston engines, and I'm not really qualified to talk much about it.
It sounds like they spun off into all sorts of variations of high pressure fittings and stuff.
Well, the propellers sort of, it was all propellers when I first got there.
Okay.
And they built propellers for every airplane in the world.
Oh, that's right. I've
all
seen them
through
at the
war,
Air Museum.
Zillions and zillions. And then after that, then they went to these, had to expand to other areas, and the air cycle refrigeration went in all the fighter airplanes. That was the first one, and the fuel controls for the, and they were hydromechanical originally, and now they're pretty much all electronic.
Now, was this all a spin-off from Pratt's original business? I mean, was this were they all part of UTC at that point, or were they separate?
Oh, we're all part of UTC. Always part of except they didn't use the term. It was United Aircraft in those days.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
United Aircraft. Yeah,
so
we were just one of United Aircraft's.
So these were all just divisions that built the planes.
Yeah, Pratt
basically.
was one, and we were one, and Sikorsky came later, I think.
Right. And they were probably, for many decades, by far the biggest employers in Connecticut.
Yes,
yeah.
That's right, and maybe they still are. That's
I
right.
think Pratt's, the single entity of Pratt may still be.
I think that is true. I think I see that, yeah.
Okay, so let's jump to East Granby here. What is, well, you had an interesting career. When you first came through East Granby, what were your first impressions of the town? Do you remember a specific?
Because I lived where I lived in Windsor, and I had various roommates over a period of time, including some that you probably even know that live in town here now.
Okay.
Bill Westervelt, for example, was my last roommate before I got married, and he got married shortly thereafter too. Where was I? We were talking about what? Living where I was, the church of choice. Now I don't know why, was the East Granby Congregational, which is in town here.
Right.
In town, East Granby.
Yeah.
The old church down there.
Well, it's pretty close to where you were living.
Yeah, and for why I chose that, I don't know. It was closer than any other church around, perhaps. And my brother was living with me at the time, before he went to New York to teach. And we sang, he's a good singer.
Okay.
I sing at it.
He makes up for it.
But Warren Wilcox was the choir director at the time. He was Merrill's father. I don't know if you know any of the Wilcox family.
I've known a lot of Wilcox.
Gail Wilcox is the daughter surviving anyway.
Okay.
But anyhow, Warren heard us singing, and he said, how about coming to my choir? So that was good. We moved upstairs to the balcony, could sing from the balcony.
It's a nice
That's
church.
a good deal.
Too.
Yep. Yeah. So we were in the choir for a while, and then Warren, who was was lame, and I don't remember why he was lame, but it was knees or hips or something. Anyway, I got hooked into being the choir director in place of him. So I started doing that, singing and doing that, and that went on for 40 years.
Wow.
So sometime in the
Did you put your mechanical engineering degree to use? You can line them up in certain That's great. So that must have been, what, the 60s? 50s, 60s, 70s?
Well, see, I was going to church there before 57.
Okay, so you started going.
So I started, so that was, and when my wife came, she came there too.
Right.
In fact, it was for whatever reason, I never told anybody I was getting married. So this was in December, because in those days you couldn't take time off from school to do anything.
Right.
It was the week between Christmas and New Year's was our so-called honeymoon.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
Here in East Granby, so to speak.
Yep.
And Sunday, we got back from the wedding in Boston area on Saturday night. Sunday morning, the car's all dirty and with just married and all kinds of
show up
stuff all over the car.
Right.
So I washed the car in the morning before we went to church.
Oh, you know what?
So you couldn't tell.
Right. Where was your wife from originally?
Foxborough.
Okay, so that's how you ended up there getting married.
And that was So that morning, she's in church by herself, and I'm upstairs. So everybody's wondering, who's this dish down here?
Who's the lady that showed up all by herself?
All by herself. And nobody knew until they got the announcements, which came.
Right. Every single guy was trying to sit next to her. All right.
That was fun.
So you end up back in East Granby, married, and you continue working. Did your wife work, or was she?
She worked. Her first job was, Mount St. Joseph Academy, not the college, but the academy, somewhere in West Hartford. She taught there for a year or two or something, and then she ended up in Manchester, driving from East Granby to Manchester every day. She was phys ed school, and she had three schools.
Wow.
So she'd drive to this school, then for a couple of hours, and drive to the next school, and then this is a
busy teacher.
It's a tough job, and then she has to drive all the way back into the sun, same way. It's always going the wrong direction.
Long day.
And what was interesting was that we didn't have any. Both our cars were British.
Oh, really?
I had a Bentley, and she had an MG.
Right.
Or we had the two cars.
Small in that
and
day.
she I don't think she liked the Bentley too much, but because it was maybe a little big. But she drove that MG with snow tires on it.
Right.
To Manchester every day for
a couple
of years before she gave all that up, and then she taught here in Algrove for a couple of years, maybe as a part-time, 2 days a week, kind of thing. Again, phys ed.
So you guys are both very active. So
yeah,
phys ed teacher, and you.
Oh yeah, and she's a fit, and she skied up until a few years ago, and she's played tennis up until last year, but her shoulder's bothering her enough that so far I'm still able to keep going. I don't know how much longer it'll be.
Well, you weren't teaching it for 40 years or whatever, right? Anyway, so when you came to East Granby, what were your impressions of the town other than the church? I mean, do you remember anything from the early days when you... You obviously decided to buy a house here.
Well, that was the first development in town, I think, was not Winding Hills. What do you call it? Melody Acres.
Okay, yeah.
Melody Acres, and I was the first or second house on Cricket Lane, I think, down at the bottom of the hill. I bought 2 lots because they went well together, and I don't know how I could afford 2 lots, but I did.
Well, the lots were a little cheaper in that day,
and even with the 2 lots, the house and everything was $19,000 or something at the time. So I squeezed that out, and we paid off the mortgage in 15 years.
Great.
With 2 of us working.
But then you ended up moving, right?
My wife wanted to be, why she liked Copper Hill area, I'm not sure.
It's pretty up there.
But it's a little less crowded, and anyway, so that's what we did. And we knew people who were there.
Well, by that time, you'd been in town for a while.
We'd been in town up 1973.
Right.
So we'd been in town 20 years or
15 years, 17 years. Yeah. Anyway, so you moved when you first started socializing in East Granby. Were there any characters that kind of jumped out at you? Anybody you remember that? Everybody seems to remember somebody that they.
Well, the Warren Wilcox, or the Wilcox family was down, and Frank Brockett was the...
Brockett?
Frank Brockett was chairman of the Planning or Zoning Board of Appeals at the time. Right. And I think he's how he got me on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Right. Well, I guess you have to run for office, I think. I don't remember how that worked.
That's the way it's done now, anyway.
Yeah, I don't remember anyway, so I was on there for a while, and then when he got off, why he got off, I don't know, I inherited that job for a few years.
The chairmanship.
Yes. Yeah. And that's when...
Any interesting appeals that you remember?
Well, Metacomet Homes was a big bone of contention at the time.
Was it really?
There were a lot of people that wanted to have that kind of facility in town, the senior citizen kind of residential facility, and there wasn't any place that fitted the price and the area requirements well. And
so there was a group trying to get it accomplished, and then there was...
And it was very close to what's the residential area that's right next to it? And I can't tell you what it is, but it's right past.
Isn't that where, like, Seneca? And,
yes,
yeah,
that group, Arrow.
The Indian.
Broken
the
Arrow.
Indian streets.
Yeah, all the Indian streets, yes. And they didn't want Metacomet homes that close or something. I don't remember the details, but anyhow, finally, the guys that were very good working on this, Al Biddleman was one, and I can't remember the other guy. But anyway, they worked a swap with Dave Drysdale, whose property is next door.
Okay.
And they swapped some frontage on the road with some back field.
So they were able to shift it backwards.
They shifted so that there was room down there, and that went through like a.
It's a beautiful location.
Yeah, the location turned out to be perfect. It's a good thing it was postponed or haggled over for as long as it was, because when it finally ended up, it was really very good.
Those delays can be frustrating, but sometimes they work out.
It turned out to be the best thing that happened. That's right.
Yeah, the first time I drove in there, I looked back at the mountain behind it. It's like, wow, this is like you're in New Hampshire or something. It's just beautiful scenery. You know? Nice setting. So that was a big contention. You went from there to planning and zoning?
Planning and zoning. I don't know why I ended up there. Somebody must have conned me into that too. Yeah. But Dick Rumor was a heavyweight on that committee for a long time.
Is he the chairman?
I don't think he was. Well, politics being what it is, he was the wrong party to get the chairmanship.
That's right. I'm on Wetlands Commission with him now.
Okay.
So he's actually still
nice guy. And,
very smart.
And he was a head honcho in the Historical Society for a long time too.
Right.
Real great guy. I stayed there. I'm trying to think, what did we do? Oh, the one thing that we approved that I can remember was Huckleberry Hill, or that group, which was the farm of Crow Farm. It was the Crow Farm.
All in back of, all in back to the right of Spoon.
Yeah, all the way up.
Going south.
Yeah, going the other direction, all the way over west. That whole farm was converted to Huckleberry Hills.
Was that contentious at all? Or?
I was the lone dissenter. Was I didn't care for one of the lots. I thought the driveway was too steep, not sensible.
Right.
Not sensible. Stupid way to lay it out.
Right.
So I voted no, and immediately they changed it, so it was okay.
Yeah, hey, you made your point, right? Yeah. Sometimes that's what it comes down to. You know? I mean, that's once again.
They wait to see what they can get, and they take a chance. If they can't get that, well, they'll go to the fallback.
Right. Plan
B kind of thing. That worked out fine.
So you were involved in at least 2 land use commissions, and did you do anything else you were involved in locally?
Well, driving the bus. I've been doing that for 10 years or so now.
The senior bus.
The senior bus. Yep. Yeah, which is, but I can't. I've been on the Historical Society for a long time.
Okay.
Since I retired, since '87 or something like that. I've been in Historical Society. And
now, let me ask you a question. If you were to focus on, maybe there's no particular thing, but the focus on the biggest change in town since you came here, what would that be?
Well, the one I disliked, I think, the most, and nobody liked it, was I'm trying to think what's a good name for it, and I can't even come up with it, but the center shops. That long strip of center
mall?
shops, yeah.
And now that was part of Hamilton.
Well, it was Combustion. Combustion built
okay,
there, they built what is now the bank on the corner, which was a nice building.
Right.
The rest of it was a bunch of flat little places, and they never really took off. It's been a drag, I think, for everybody that's ever tried to. They've tried hardware stores, they've tried restaurants, they've tried all kinds of things, and hasn't really done that well.
They've never had a real anchor.
That's right, and there's no place in town to have an anchor. The town has no grocery store, no pharmacy, no hardware store. It's tough with a small population, 5,000 people or something like that. You can't.
Yeah, so that particular.
You can't have a big thing going.
That mall there, you think would be better left developed in a different way.
Yes, I think so too. But the parking lot is used all the time. It's nice to have that big parking lot, but it's not useful.
Extra space.
Except on Memorial Day and things when you need a lot of parking.
I always thought if they turned it into a road there, it might be better, where you actually had shops with frontage. Mm-hmm. But all the focus, I was on planning and zoning for a while, and all the focus now is on School Street, trying to turn that into the village center. So,
that's right, but there's not a lot of land there to use either, unless you go across Route 20, and that's
right.
That defeats the
I think
purpose.
The feeling is that you're never going to have an over demand for land, and what's there would probably suffice for quite a while. And you could probably, once you develop that, then it would kind of stagger out from there. You know.
Okay. I don't know how big a individual building you could put in there, and make it pay for itself. You can't have a CVS, for example. It's too big a.
It's a balance, yeah. Also, I think the companies like CVS aren't as inclined to, the demographics here are just under the threshold in terms of population density and such. So.
And we tried the grocery store up at where that other place is, up the...
Oh, where it was a fitness place?
Fitness place was, yeah. The building wasn't big enough for a real grocery store. And
right.
And as what they tried to make it a specialty store, they wouldn't support it.
Right.
If there was
other than that particular stretch, is there anything that you would change? Looking back, you know, like I was preface it by saying hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would have done differently, or for the town, not necessarily on your particular watch or the groups you were involved with?
Oh, I wasn't. The town itself.
Anything you would?
Whether they have. I think at the time they had the grocery store was Fitzgerald's before it was Cane's. It was Fitzgerald's, and they couldn't make it work either. But we thought at the time, oh boy, East Granby's got a grocery store,
right.
And they didn't support it.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, those are the types of stores that you have to have in place for years before they actually generate income.
And there was a pharmacy there too, right next to it, and that struggled along for a while too. But again, there's not enough. If you had and you don't have a core store there to bring people in to go to the pharmacy and do everything else.
That's what you need.
It's funny how the liquor store can hang out so well there.
Well, I think liquor stores survive almost anywhere.
Kind of amazing.
Permanent anchor. Right?
Permanent anchor.
Yeah, there you go. The anchor of humanity. Right? So you have. So when your kids went to school in town.
Yep.
What schools did they go to?
I guess they went through the whole one. They all went to Allgrove and to Seymour and to the schools over here in the.
So there was an actual high school by the time, because I know they used to ship the kids off.
Yeah,
your kids would have been a little bit later.
They were enough later. They were enough later that they had no problem going to school here.
Right.
Right.
If you were to have one wish for the town now, what would it be? If you were to say, if I could change one thing about the town.
Oh, one thing, huh?
It's interesting because you spent years looking at this.
Yeah, I don't think where the pre-fitness was, that little group of buildings is not attractive. I don't know whether you can do anything about it or change it in some fashion to a different bit of business, group of businesses or something, but I don't know. There's so much land behind there, too. Yeah. Nicholson's owned that forever, all the way back to where I lived, almost to Seymour Road. And I don't know what will ever happen to that. I thought that was going to get used and coupled in with the expansion farther east off Route 20.
Right.
All those businesses that are up there, but most of them are not manufacturing type things. Most of them are delivery or storage or
warehouses, light industrial type stuff. Yeah. You know, that piece is probably one of the most focused on right now in terms of the plan of development and stuff like that. So I think you'll see something there. And there's been rumors through the years about different things, but nothing quite ever came to. Plus, we've had this economic downturn here that's really kind of taken the steam out of a lot of things. So.
And the center shops, I don't know what you can do with that either. You can't change it.
So you transform the retail into something a little bit more viable and attractive.
Look at Granby, for example. But Granby's got 2 or 3 times the population that we have.
Yep.
And where I am, just by dumb luck, I can ride my bike across the bike path to 189 up to the up to Granby.
Right into
And
Granby.
everything is in Granby.
Yeah.
Everything.
They have
you want.
two
It's
hardware
there.
stores, you know.
Yeah, well, that's too bad.
Three banks.
Why they did that, I don't know.
I don't know, but it's kind of interesting.
Everything is there, so I can ride my bike there. I walked there to get my haircut last week. It's only 3 miles. 3 miles. It's an hour walk from my house.
I honestly think, just from my time I've spent looking at the center and being involved with the different land use and stuff, is I think in the next 20 years you'll see a radically different East Granby center. Or next, even I think you'll start, if the economy picks up, it could be quicker. But you started to see that they built the new health club, health tracks or whatever they.
Yes, over there on Nicholson Road over there. Yeah.
And now they're putting a little spa at one end of it. So that's the type of stuff that building was built for today. It's designed for today's businesses, and it's new construction. But you really don't see much of that sort of construction going on.
No.
So that was kind of I was a member of the planning and zoning when we approved that, and that was nice to see. That was to see that interest. I think if the economy gels a little bit, you'll see that. Well, one more question for you: if you were to give advice to children today, your life, your 80 some odd years of wisdom, what would your gem of wisdom be for kids growing up today?
Pay attention in school.
Just
be a good student.
Be a good student.
It's tough if you're not.
Right.
And it gives you access to jobs, to college, to all kinds of things if you apply yourself early on.
Right.
And I think I don't like to use the word exercise, but body, paying attention to your body, avoiding the drug things, of course. But physical exercise is a wonderful thing. I don't know whether that keeps me going or not, but I started running when I was 50 because I thought I needed more aerobics than just playing tennis once a week, which is not good for continuous duty kind of stuff. Yeah. And so I ran forever until I was 80, and I was very successful at it. And
I will say there's a theme from the folks that sit in that chair and are in really good shape of exercise and activity, not just physical exercise, but mental exercise. They seem to stay involved with different groups, and you're still involved with the Historical Society, and you still do. But they're really, the ones that come in here and they rattle off all these things that they've done, those are the ones that are still sharp and still. But physical activity is huge. I mean,
I think it is.
If you don't have that, I think everything suffers. So.
I was lucky with my son because he was a musician and one of these what do you call it, photographic memories. He can remember anything. Anything he reads, he knows.
Oh, really? Wow.
And
that can be good and bad.
And perfect pitch. He could tell you. He could give you an A, give me a this.
Wow.
You know, that stuff. And he played with the Dallas Brass for a number of years. That's one of the high trumpet or high brass quintets. And he gave that up because you live out of the suitcase just so long, and it's
there's a point in life you want to settle
drives you nuts.
Yes.
And if you ever want to have a family, you're not going to survive that. It wasn't really a healthy environment either, because you finish the gig and everybody goes out and drinks or something. You know, it's a lot of
fun
drawbacks.
When you're young.
But anyway, he did an awful lot. He even played in Mexico for a while in a symphony. He had a great time with his trumpet. But anyway,
beautiful.
Now he's a store manager up in Agawam.
Oh, so he's back in the area.
Hardware, yeah.
Oh, good for him. So, and your daughter?
She's a optician, I think is the right word. If you want to go to any optical store where they sell glasses have the doctors that test your eyes and then will sell you the glasses. She's the one that fits you the glasses or makes the lenses and all that kind of stuff.
Well, sounds like you've had a good, healthy life there, Ted, and your kids are all doing well, and I'm glad to hear that. It's been an honor to have you on tonight. You sound like you've been part of the community here for a long time, and we're trying to reach out and get as many of you guys on tape as we can.
Well, I hope I didn't bore anybody.
No, it's never boring. It's never boring for me, and I get a lot of comments, positive feedback, so I'm sure they'll enjoy you as much as everyone else.
I enjoyed talking with you. You said it was going to be easy. It didn't bother me.
Yeah, well, Thanks for joining us tonight. As always, you can view the Reflections on East Granby Friday night at 8 p.m. It's repeated on Saturday morning. It also plays at various times during the week, but you can find our schedule and you can pull up at 24/7 view online any of the program you see on GCTV, and we appreciate your support, and we would like to thank Ted for coming on tonight, and we'll see you next time. Have a good night.